We evaluate the sharp edge of the American military by its kinetic power, stealth fighters, hypersonic interceptors, and advanced radar. But these billion-dollar platforms are hollow shells without a hidden foundation of raw elements. Take the PAC-3 MSE missile. A single guided weapon like this relies on 18 different critical minerals to function. Every circuit, magnet, and propulsion system demands a precise, rare material recipe. This chart compares the global share of midstream refinement capacity between the United States and China. The midstream is where raw ore becomes high-grade metal. In categories like graphite and rare earths, China controls 50 to 95% of the entire planet's refinement capacity. The United States currently depends on its primary geopolitical rival to process the very materials that make its defense systems possible. The ultimate vulnerability of a modern superpower is geographic. This dependency is a recent development. In 1939, military planners realized that geological wealth was useless without a coordinated system to refine and allocate it. The Strategic Materials Act was passed to physically insulate the American industrial base before the outbreak of World War II. By 1950, those lessons had created the National Defense Stockpile. The government transformed the reserve into a permanent logistical enterprise, storing immense quantities of critical metals at hundreds of locations to prepare for a multi-year conventional war. This chart tracks the financial value of that stockpile. You can see how the valuation surged throughout the Cold War, reflecting the Pentagon's focus on material sovereignty and long-term readiness. The inventory reached its peak in 1962. Adjusted for inflation, the United States held $77.1 billion worth of combat-ready material. This was the nation's ultimate insurance policy. It ensured that even if global trade collapsed, American factories could keep producing the weapons required for survival. When the Soviet Union collapsed, the strategic calculus shifted. Seeking a peace dividend, the Department of Defense pivoted toward globalized, just-in-time markets, assuming that physical reserves were a legacy of the past. This chart records the financial fallout of that dividend. The Defense Logistics Agency sold off cobalt, manganese, and ferroalloys for decades. By 2023, the reserve's value had crashed from $77 billion to a historic low of $0.9 billion. The true cost of this liquidation is visible at the Mountain Pass mine in California. For decades, this site was the world's leading source of rare earth elements, the lifeblood of modern defense electronics. When the U.S. government exited the market, domestic operations were undercut by Chinese suppliers. The 2002 suspension of Mountain Pass cost the United States its specialized workforce and the chemical processing expertise required to turn raw ore into defense components. Geopolitical analysts view mineral security as an industrial policy problem. While a physical reserve provides a short-term buffer, it cannot replace a durable industrial base. By cashing out its reserves, the U.S. allowed its own refining capabilities to atrophy. In 2025, the peace dividend was formally declared dead. The Department of Defense was rebranded as the Department of War, a structural shift intended to refocus the institution on great power competition. This funding flow illustrates the scale of the reversal. The One Big Beautiful Bill Act authorized a $150 billion surge, including $2 billion for the stockpile, and $5 billion to fund domestic mining and processing startups. The agency has transitioned to comprehensive supply chain mapping across hundreds of industries. They are now hunting for single points of failure, specific facilities whose disruption would freeze entire production lines. The Department of War is now acting as a direct funding partner to the industry. They are executing a highly expensive maneuver to leapfrog their rivals and reclaim the midstream industrial independence sacrificed decades ago. The primary driver of this rebuilding effort is a project known as the Golden Dome, a $175 billion layered missile defense shield. The material appetite of this project has expanded the 2025 critical minerals list. Historically abundant materials like copper and uranium are now classified as strategic priorities due to their roles in energy and nuclear modernization. Maintaining a layered shield capable of stopping peer adversaries requires immense quantities of specialized minerals for kinetic interceptors and space-based sensors. The Golden Dome cannot exist without a secure material stockpile. Because industrial capabilities decay faster than they are rebuilt, The United States is now in a race to restore the physical foundation of its survival.